The scorching heat of Makkah's sun beat down on empty streets. Dust rose from the desert horizon as a caravan disappeared into the distance, heading towards Syria. But that day, something happened that would quietly change the course of human history forever. A young man led that caravan, honest, truthful. His people already had a name for him, Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. But that day, a responsibility rested on his shoulders that he had never carried before. The wealth, the goods, the entire trading caravan belonged to a woman, one of the richest, most respected merchants in all of Makkah, and she had placed everything in his hands. But this was just the beginning. Let's go back a little so you understand why this moment mattered so much. Makkah, at that time, was the beating heart of Arabian trade. Caravans moved in and out constantly, carrying silk, spices, and fortunes. And in this city of merchants and money, there was one woman whose name carried more weight than gold, Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, R.A. She came from one of the noblest families of the Quraysh. She had been widowed twice, and rather than depending on anyone, she had built and controlled her own trading empire. People called her Tahira, the Pure One. Others called her Amirat ul-Quraysh, the Princess of the Quraysh. She had everything a person could want, wealth beyond measure, respect beyond question. But inside, there was a quiet emptiness, a search for one thing money couldn't buy, someone she could actually trust. She had watched too many men in Makkah trade away their integrity for a handful of silver. Then, one day, a name reached her ears. Muhammad, S.A.W., just 25 years old. But when it came to honesty, no one in Makkah could match him. Merchants would say, "Give this man your wealth, and not a single dirham will ever go missing." Khadijah, R.A., made a decision. Give him a chance. It was a test, a risk. Was this young man really as honest as everyone claimed, or was it just talk? Muhammad, S.A.W., set out for Syria with her caravan. He wasn't alone. Her trusted servant, Maysara, traveled with him, quietly watching every move, every decision, every word. The desert stretched endlessly. Silence pressed down from every side. Only the rhythm of camel footsteps broke the stillness, and the sun burned so fiercely that even shadows seemed to shrink away in fear. But Maysara began to notice something strange. Whenever the heat became unbearable, and Muhammad, S.A.W., paused to rest beneath a tree, Maysara felt as though the shade itself followed him, clinging to him even as the sun shifted across the sky. A strange, unexplainable calm surrounded him, a kind of light that no words could fully describe. Then something happened that no one expected. In Syria, Muhammad, S.A.W., conducted every transaction with such honesty and precision that the profits doubled, far beyond what the caravan usually earned. Every deal was clean, every word spoken was true, no deception, no shortcuts, no lies. Maysara watched in quiet amazement. This was not an ordinary man. The journey home began. But in the desert, the real test was never just physical distance. It was patience. Hunger gnawed, thirst burned the throat, exhaustion pulled at every limb. Yet Muhammad's S.A.W. character never cracked. His patience never wavered. When the caravan finally reappeared on the horizon, approaching Makkah, Khadijah, R.A., stood at her window, watching. And what she saw in that moment stirred something deep within her heart. It is said that two angels shaded the young man from the blazing sun as he rode closer to the city. Khadijah's R.A. heart trembled. This was no ordinary sight, and she knew it. The prophets had doubled. His honesty was beyond question. But for Khadijah, R.A., the real treasure wasn't the money at all. It was the character she had just witnessed with her own eyes. She called for her close friend, Nafisa bint Munabi, and gave her a delicate, important task. "Go," she said. "Find out, does Muhammad, S.A.W., ever think about marriage?" This was no small question. In that era, for a woman, especially one as prominent as Khadijah, R.A., to make the first move was an act of quiet courage. Nafisa went. She spoke carefully, gently. And when the answer finally came back, silence filled the air on both sides. But something new had already begun to stir in two hearts. Yet, feelings alone were never enough. Marriage, in that time, was not simply a decision between two people. Entire families became bound together. Khadijah's, R.A. uncle, Amr bin Asad, was her guardian, and his approval was essential. Muhammad's, S.A.W. uncle, Abu Talib, the man who had raised him since childhood, would need to speak on his behalf. Tension hung heavy in the air. Could this union really happen? A woman of immense wealth and status, and a young man with little money, but a character worth more than all the gold in Makkah. Abu Talib rose to speak. His words that day are remembered in history even now. He said his nephew, Muhammad, S.A.W., was second to none in nobility, honesty, and character, even if his wealth was modest. True wealth, he said, lies in character, not coins. A heavy silence fell over the gathering. Every eye watched. Every breath was held. Then, finally, Amr bin Asad gave his consent. But one more matter remained. The mahar. How much should be given? Khadijah, R.A. herself, was wealthy enough that she needed nothing at all. But tradition still had to be honored. The mahar was agreed upon, 20 camels. A modest sum, especially set against Khadijah's, R.A., vast fortune, because for her, this marriage was never about wealth in the first place. The day of the nikah arrived. A wave of quiet joy spread through the streets of Makkah. Abu Talib delivered the marriage sermon himself. It was simple, no grand spectacle, and yet, within that simplicity, there was a depth of spirituality that words could never fully capture. On that day, Khadijah, R.A., was around 40 years old. Muhammad, S.A.W., was 25. But that difference never became a barrier, because this bond was never about age or appearance or wealth. It was a union of souls. This was far more than a wedding. It was the joining of two hearts that Allah Himself was preparing, a quiet beginning that would one day reshape the destiny of the entire world. Khadijah, R.A., gave everything into this marriage, her wealth, her status, her heart, her life. And in return, she found a companion who would stand beside her through every trial that followed. Years later, deep inside the cave of Hira, the first revelation descended. Muhammad, S.A.W., returned home trembling, overwhelmed, terrified by what he had witnessed. "Zamiluni, Zamiluni," he said. Cover me, I am afraid." In that moment of fear and confusion, there was only one person beside him. And she did not hesitate, did not question, did not doubt. Khadijah, R.A., comforted him, placed her hand gently on his head, and spoke words that still move hearts today. "Do not be afraid. Allah will never disgrace you. You uphold family ties, you speak the truth, you help the poor and the weak." It was in that moment that the truth became clear. This marriage was never just about love. It was the very first pillar upon which Islam itself would be built. Khadijah, R.A., the first human being to believe in Islam, the first to sacrifice everything for it, the first to stand firmly beside the Prophet, S.A.W., when the entire world turned against him. And from this story, we learn something powerful. A true bond is never built on wealth, beauty, or status. It is built on character. Khadijah, R.A., recognized the character of one man, and that single moment of recognition changed the course of human history forever. But the real story was only just beginning, because the love and sacrifice that Khadijah, R.A., gave were not simply the story of a marriage. They were the foundation of the first 25 years of Islam. And in the next video, we will step into that first revelation, that first faith, and that unbreakable patience that kept Islam alive, even when the whole world stood against it.